Hi there, and how is everybody? And there, Penny. I must have said something that woke her up. Um, say hi to everybody. Penny, say hi. Anyway, okay. So what we were looking at, or what I was looking at today, was the idea of that when people start to make some changes, they question whether or not what they're doing is making them feel good. Now, I can understand this from the standpoint, again, let's go back to Doritos, so that you feel good when you're eating them because they taste good and you like what you're going on. But then when you get on the scale or when you try and put on some clothes that you might have worn last year, do you feel good at that particular point in time? So that when we're looking at making changes in any kind of change, one of the things we need to ask ourselves is, does this thing make me feel good? Does this particular change make me feel good? There are some change possibility that there are some changes you may say you want to make and may think you want to make, but that's definitely don't make you feel good. Maybe you think you should do something because everybody tells you you should, but you really don't feel good about that at all. So that if you're making a change that, or thinking about making a change that makes you feel uncomfortable or unpleasant or sad or some such thing like that, then maybe it's something that you shouldn't feel you shouldn't do at all. And there she goes, tries to get under the bed. We'll just do this quick minute. Oh my, sorry about that. The was she was going to scream. So now you can see why I've got the lump on your bed, because she's a burrower. Anyway, so she's doing what she wants to do to feel good. Okay. So there's a difference between feeling good from the standpoint of, gee, I really like eating the Doritos, or I really like, being somebody who sits back and not getting anything done because everybody else is doing it ahead of me because I'm scared, that kind of thing. And so you're feeling comfortable, but you're not necessarily feeling good. So let's take a look at a couple of things that you could be thinking about or how to deal with some of those things. Again, I'm taking some of these comments out of this book. And so I'm kind of looking at a couple of notes that they've got here. Um, Because one of the things that you might want, or a couple of things that you might want to do, is to ask yourself, and I'm saying, what keeps you up at night? What bothers you? What are the things that are going through your head that are saying something about, I shouldn't do this, or I should change this, or I need to do more of this, or whatever? And look at what really bothers you. Go back to the Dorito issue. Does it really bother you to stop eating, or stop eating the caloric foods or the things that you say you don't want to eat? Is that what really bothers you, or is there something else that bothers you? And why don't you feel good more often? What causes you to feel pain and grief, and where are some of those feelings coming from? What scares you? So let me go back with the Doritos issue, because what might happen, and again, this is nothing against Doritos. I'm just, for whatever reason, I picked that to begin with, and I'm sticking with it just for the consistency across this, is that there are some people who may be overweight or think they're overweight, and they may be afraid, they may be scared about what would happen if they suddenly lost weight and started to look good. Um, if they were, quote, more normal or some such thing like that, whatever's going on in their head, they may think that they don't know, or, what am I going to do if something happens? In the case, well, I started saying in the case of a woman, it could be a male or a female. If you're suddenly heavy, and there are people on record that this has happened to, they're very, very heavy, then they lose weight, and then suddenly people start paying attention to them, and they look good, and they don't know what to do. They freak out. It's like, how do I handle this? And they get so scared because they don't know what to do in those particular circumstances that they start eating again. So in many cases, they're scared of not understanding what's going to happen if they succeed in changing the particular behavior they change. So maybe you're scared to speak in public. So what are you scared about? If you get up and you gave a speech and people loved it, what would be the fear that you would have at that point? Maybe that you'd have to do it again. A lot of people aren't scared of failure. They're scared of success. Many people are said, well, I failed before, because I've said this. In fact, I was saying that about something. I don't even remember what the topic was, but I clearly remember that about a month or so ago, I said, I'm not afraid of failure because I failed lots of times. In this particular item, whatever it happened to be, the success was the scary part, because that would mean I'd have to do it again. And since I wasn't sure what I did in the first place to succeed, it was like, gee, I have to do this again. And so it's sort of like the scary part is then if I do this, people are going to expect me to do it again and again and again, and I'm going to have to start doing this stuff. And I couldn't fall back on my standard. I don't know how to do it. Okay. Does this make sense? So I would be willing to bet that there are a lot of people that are more scared of success than they are of failure because success has a totally different set of meanings and expectations than failure does. Because people said, oh, okay, you failed, you've done it before, so I don't expect you to do it again. But, oh, gee, you did that. See, you can do it. Let's do it again. And that might be the thing that scares you. Okay. So you could be scared of what would happen if you succeeded in making the change in your behavior. Does this make sense? So just think in terms of what are you afraid of? Are you afraid of not succeeding? And therefore it's like, okay, I didn't think you could because you've never done it before. Is that the part that scares you? Or is the part that scares you the idea that you actually could be successful? And then you don't have that negative stuff to fall back on. Could be either way. It could be something totally different. But what is it that might scare you? Okay. Now, we got that? Remember, and I've said this before, and if you didn't hear me when I said it, your brain is wired to keep you safe. It doesn't like when you make some major changes because it sees a major change as being something scary and potentially dangerous. When your brain is looking at, let's say, not speaking in front of a crowd or not standing up for yourself or whatever it happens to be, that may be what it considers normal and it knows what to do with it because that's safe. It knows how to handle that. So should you change the behavior, your brain gets scared because it doesn't know what it's going to do. It's like, I can't, it's something new and it's a different behavior and it's scary. What happens if you get up and give a speech? Could you get hurt? Could somebody shoot you? That's not likely to happen if you're trying to give a speech in front of your high school class. But the brain is thinking these kinds of things. So that many times when we're having these negative thoughts, it's just purely the brain is trying to do its best to try and save you from what it thinks is a dangerous thing. So if you're overweight, it might be dangerous as far as your brain's concerned to change the data and change the situation to become skinny. Because it's like, what's going to happen if you get to be skinny? How do we deal with this? And so the brain doesn't like to deal with change. Okay. So that when you're doing something like this, again, the book I'm talking about, I'll show you again. Habits Die Hard. It's Mark Anderson and John Murphy, if it's too small. We're talking about a process called what they refer to as, or somebody's referred to as RAIN. Recognize that this is what's happening to you. Understand that when you have these negative thoughts, that these things may be going through your head, that your brain just pulls that up, and it's as you start thinking about this, regardless of what you really think about it. This is going to be a knee-jerk reaction that your brain's going to do just simply because it wants to make you feel good and wants to keep you safe, at least its idea of safe. Okay? Then accept the fact that this is there. Okay, my brain's doing this again. Okay, so what's going on? Okay, it's this thought. Is it really likely to be true? Am I likely to really end up, falling flat on my face or some such thing like that? And the other part, let's just suppose you get up in front of your high school class or something like that, whatever, and you give a speech. Okay, so maybe you might trip and fall. Okay, so what's likely to be the worst case scenario? Most likely, most people are going to come to you and get worried because you got hurt. Anybody who laughs at you is probably a teenager or some such thing like that who doesn't understand the full impact of that particular situation. But most people are not going to react that way to you. So if you're afraid that, quote, people are going to laugh at me, you're probably looking at the wrong group of people and you probably don't want to hang around with them anyway, because you really need a group of people who are going to be more concerned about the end result and what you have to say. And so if you start thinking in terms of what that negative fear is, and is that really something that's going to be worth keeping you from doing whatever it is? If you are afraid of getting up and standing up for yourself and that people are going to say something negative about you, those are the people you really want to impress. Because they may be the people that are trying to keep you back for some reason. Okay? Does this make sense? And think about these. What's going to happen? Where do you feel in your body? Do you feel gut feeling of fear? Do you feel panic? Do you feel something? Where is it that you feel, and what can you do about that? And when you can kind of address that specific issue, are you panicked? Are you afraid? Okay, take a look at it and say, okay, I'm afraid. Can I deal with this? Is it the worst thing that's ever going to happen to me? How am I going to feel a week later if I don't do this? If I give into my fear, am I going to feel good in a week, a month, or whatever? Or am I going to feel good because I stood up to the fear and did something about it? Okay? And then think about the idea that these are thoughts that are just sort of like passing through your yeah, how many thoughts do you have during the course of your whole day that just sort of like pass through your head and they're gone? If you've ever said something like, I was just thinking about that. Now, what was in my head? They're gone. You know that. If you really stop to think about it, there have been a ton of thoughts that have gone through your head that lasted all of like maybe half a second and they're gone and you have no clue what you thought about. Now, some of these negative thoughts are going to be a little longer than that, but essentially they're thoughts that are passing through your head that are just trying to react to you and your behavior to try and keep you safe. But you being aware of what's going on, you're aware of what your head's thinking, you're aware of what your skills are, you can figure out how to set things up ahead of time so that you'll be fine, get, somebody to stand behind you or whatever it is you need to do, and you can conquer those particular fears. Okay? You can once you're addressing those things that your brain is thinking of these negative thoughts. Once you're aware of what those thoughts are, you can set something up to protect you or counteract or argue with them or whatever it is. But you should feel good about what it is that you're trying to do because you're feeling successful at doing whatever. You're feeling successful at giving that speech. You're feeling successful at finally conquering your weight. You're feeling successful at the fact that you stood up for yourself in a particular situation. Whatever the situation is, you should be feeling good about it. So the question is what do you need to do to feel good? And do you feel really good about what you're doing now? And what do you need to change that? I hope this has given you some things to think about, good or bad as the case may be. And let me know if I've confused you, if you have any more questions, and if this has been helpful. I would like to hear from you about that. Okay? Does this make sense? I hope so. If not, again, make a comment and ask me more for more information. I'd be more than happy to come back and do what I can to clarify things for you. Okay? So I hope you have a good rest of your day or rest of your week or whatever, depending on where you are, and we will chat with you later. Bye. Okay, I did it. It's,